Eddie Ahlgreen News Wraps on 92.7 FM KOCF. Listen into News Wraps Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. before Democracy Now!, at noon and at 3:45 p.m. weekdays for our new 5-minute segment. It is Tuesday, March 23rd. Long Tom Watershed Council virtual event tonight, 6 to 7 p.m. at longtom.org with Speaker Haley K. Scott, Siletz Indian Tribal Member for Climate Justice Committees and NAACP. Here's Clinton Begley, Executive Director of Long Tom Watershed Council.
Hi, I'm Clinton Begley, Executive Director for the Long Tom Watershed Council. The Watershed Council has been around since 1998, and we have been serving the Long Tom Watershed community, including Eugene, Monroe, Veneta, Junction City, and communities throughout the Long Tom and even over to the Willamette River. And primarily we work on a voluntary basis with private landowners and in some cases public agencies to improve water quality and habitat conditions in the Long Tom watershed. The way we've been designed is to work with all interests since the very beginning. And so that includes forestry, includes agriculture, urban residential, rural residential, and a lot of local communities and local governments. And so we really work on a collaborative basis to make a difference right here in the Long Tom.
And I understand you're a nonprofit, but you're not an advocacy group.
That's correct. We don't participate in political processes. We really believe that there's a lot of work to be done in the voluntary space. In fact, if you go on our website or you look at some of our annual reports and you see the great work that's been done for the last 23 years, you might mistake us for a restoration organization. But when you understand that the Long Tom watershed is 90% privately owned and none of this work happens without dedicated landowners allowing this work to happen and making sure it fits with their priorities on their properties, you begin to understand that we're really a relationship building organization. And that's expressed through these voluntary projects that happen to benefit all of us in the watershed.
Could you give a history of some of the tribes, the indigenous people who are involved?
Right. So we are on Kalapuya land. There are upwards of 10,000 years of reciprocal human relationships that are expressed on the land in terms of the habitat and the plant and animal communities that are here. And people really have always been a part of this landscape. You can't really separate humans from the watershed. And so the tribes that are here were tribes and bands of the Kalapuyan people and now reside on reservations of the Confederated tribes of Siletz and Confederated tribes of Grand Ronde, sort of inside and outside of the Willamette Valley now. And so we've been engaged for many years in collaborative processes with them, but in particular the last 3 or 4 years have really leaned into those relationships, understanding that there is a responsibility to make sure we can support the leadership and the ongoing stewardship that these tribes have and their interests in the landscape.
Okay, and for the March 23rd event, who is your speaker?
Yeah, on March 23rd we'll be hosting Haley K. Scott, who is a tribal member for the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians. She's also a climate justice organizer with NAACP and is on several climate justice committees in our area and is helping to further this conversation.
And how does the issues of diversity and racism reflect on the environmental impacts on the Watershed Council?
From the beginning, we've understood that the collective wisdom of everybody in the watershed is essential if we're going to actually achieve a brighter future with a healthier watershed. And really about 4 years ago, we understood that idea of getting collective wisdom of everybody here, we'd had some folks that were missing. And we really can't have a successful environmental future if we don't have all voices at the table, collaborating across differences and finding out where our common interests are. And so for us, really having everybody at the table and being an equal partner in having these hard conversations about our watershed future is the only way forward. And so if we're not addressing racial injustice, we can't really be addressing climate or watershed health at the same time. They really are linked. And so I'm looking forward to Haley illuminating that further and how BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and low-income communities are actually receiving disproportionate impacts for a changing climate and for some of our most prescient watershed issues.
Wonderful. And how can people get involved?
You can go to our website at longtom.org. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, and there's a variety of ways to participate. Of course, COVID has put a little bit of a damper on some of our volunteer efforts, but there's plenty of ways to be involved. Bring your voice, bring your dollars, and bring your time to this work, because that's really what it's about, is bringing your passion and your time.
Eddie Ahlgreen, KOCF.